I mean, if she was buying me dinner, didn't mean we had to make out afterward. This is assuming he's a man, not a boy, and there's a difference. Would you ever consider going on a date with me?
What? Okay.
But I'm glad you didn't.
I know you are. Yes, I'm sure I did.
How much do I trust my daughter?
Meaning me.
I'm meaning you. I was
Meaning
gonna say.
me.
And I did give you the 5 criteria for me to pay for your tuition. I mean, that's probably it. Nice hands, smooth legs crossed. Because I really didn't think that I was gonna get that hard.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Riley if you're new here, and this is my dad, Austin. This is our first video we're filming together. My dad is the one who I go to for all of my dating advice. I'm texting him and calling him all the time at school. I thought it would be fun if you guys asked him for advice on your certain situations. Hopefully he can help you with your questions about dating and marriage and all the kind of advice. Before we start the questions, you want to give us a rundown on where you met Mom and kind of the timeline of your relationship?
So Wendy and I met at Ohio State through our congregation. We knew each other for about 2 years before we actually went on our first date. Our first date was January 19th, 1999. April 15th, I wrote in my journal that I was going to marry her. May 10th, I proposed, and we were married August 21st, 1999.
All right, let's jump into the questions. Is it beneficial to go on dates with people I'm not interested in just to get experience?
I mean, I think it is. I don't think that you should take advantage of somebody if you're not interested.
Be honest with people.
Right. If the date that you're being invited on is something that you would do with someone who you were romantic with, but you wouldn't necessarily do it with someone that you weren't romantic with, then don't say yes, because then you're more likely leading them on. But if it's something you would do with your girlfriends, your guy friends, like whatever, and it's not necessarily something that would be considered romantic, then I don't think there's anything wrong in saying yes. One of the reasons why you should date and get to know a lot of people is because it helps you be better informed about what it is that matters to you. What are the things that you must have, and what are the things that you absolutely can't stand? Did I ever go out with a girl that I wasn't interested in just because I didn't have anything else going on and I wanted to go out? Yes, I did. I absolutely did. I mean, if she was buying me dinner and taking me out to the movies, it was like, well, that's nice. It didn't mean we had to make out afterwards or anything. I mean, it's like we're just friends.
Yeah,
and I think that's completely fine. Then we had a good conversation about psychology or politics or whatever, and just enjoy yourself. It doesn't always have to be a serious relationship. As a matter of fact, I think the best part of dating is when you aren't necessarily exclusive and you get a chance to meet people and interact. I know that can be hard to do sometimes, but it's true. It can be good.
If a girl asks a guy out, does she pay?
If a girl asks the guy out, does she pay? I think she should be prepared to pay.
Yeah.
Okay? She should be prepared to pay. And if you're asking the guy out and you're not prepared to pay, then you need to tell him, like,
yeah,
I'm not prepared to pay, but I want to go out with you, so let's bring it on. I got asked out by a girl.
And
the waitress comes over and is like, well, here's the check, and she slides it to me. And I just took it and like slid it across the table to the girl because I did not want to go out.
Yeah.
She kind of forced it on me.
Yeah.
And then she kind of gets it and she picks it up and looks at it and she's like, well, you just go ahead and get the tip. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring my wallet. Which I think is totally fair. So if the girl asks, the girl pays.
How do you know when a man is serious about a relationship and not just playing around?
When a man is serious about a relationship and not just playing around, he will tell you. First of all, this is assuming he's a man, not a boy.
Yeah.
And there's a difference. A man is ready to make commitments. A man can make and keep promises. So we're starting with the premise it's a man.
Yep.
And so a man will tell you, he will communicate that, and you'll know. If it's a boy, he won't know how to tell you. And he's immature in that way.
Is your first kiss as important as everybody makes it seem?
I think the longer the time that passes between your first kiss and where you are in your life, perhaps the importance diminishes some because of the other life experiences you have. But when you're young and everything's new, I think it's very important. And it is usually the beginning of a pathway of other ways of showing affection. If you have the opportunity to set up a beautiful setting, a beautiful experience, then you certainly should.
What about a person that you are potentially interested in, and you've already kissed other people before? How important is that first kiss?
Actually, I wrote about this in my book. When I have two characters talking about it, I was kind of expressing that. A kiss should represent something. It shouldn't just be the physical act. Actually, a kiss does represent something. Every act of physical intimacy, whether it be holding hands or a hand on a shoulder, a hug, a kiss, whatever it is, it represents something. And so just as it's wrong to say something that you don't really feel, it's also wrong to do something that you don't really feel. And sometimes even when you do feel it, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And there's the dad advice.
When is it okay to have a boyfriend? Like a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend. Not just going on dates, because for our family, it's 16.
I don't think it's wrong to have your, they used to call it your main squeeze.
What?
That's kind of an old term. Someone's your main squeeze, that means like, that's the one you prefer. This is an old term. I would say that if you're of dating age, that it's okay to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
What?
But yeah.
Okay, I never felt like that was okay.
But I'm glad you didn't feel like that was okay.
I know you are.
You didn't flat out ask me.
I know. Yes, I'm sure I did. Are you serious?
No, you never said when can I have a boyfriend.
I don't. Maybe I just like never got to the point where I was like really that involved with anybody.
Right.
But
I think you can have a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you're prepared to have your heart broken. How's that? If you're prepared to have your heart broken, then you're prepared to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Why are boys so afraid to ask the girl they like on a date?
Boys are afraid to ask the girl that they like out on a date because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of failure. The guys who don't care about failure, that will take any risk, and it really doesn't matter to them if they fail, they usually do really well with the girls because they just throw it out there. And I think your little brother Sam is like that.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Sam's like that. Sam doesn't care. He just assumes things are going to work out his way. And even when they don't, he's kind of like, well, I'm really worried about her. She didn't say yes. She must have some problem, So the guys get scared. So sometimes it's helpful if the young lady will
help them out.
Help him out. Say, hey, would you ever consider going on a date with me? And he's like, well, yeah. You're like, well, all you have to do is ask, and then leave it at that. Let him be the, kind of make him step up. And the more you're attracted to a girl, the harder it is. And I remember talking to girls in high school and sitting there, and hopefully I wasn't outwardly shaking, but I remember just feeling like I was just shaking because I was either so excited or just so like she's, this goddess of beauty sitting in front of me talking to me, when she might have just been like, well, that was nice, we had a nice conversation, and I'm walking away barely able to stand up. Maybe you've experienced that, but I have, and that can be very intimidating. Again, the difference between a boy and a man.
Yeah, we already talked about that,
as they become a man, they're less fearful.
Yeah.
You got to take the risk. You got to do it.
How do you know when liking someone becomes love?
I think it's when you find yourself thinking about them all the time. You're concerned with their well-being. You feel impelled to be close to them. You're willing to make commitments with this person. All those are reasons why you're transitioning from just liking somebody to loving them. It can happen gradually or it can happen suddenly. So be careful. Beware.
Yeah. A lot of people were asking, how do I find the one? How do people find the one, Dad?
Quality gets quality. So I assume when you ask, where do I find the one, or how can I find the one, what you really are saying is, how can I find the best one for me? And I hope that you're not thinking the one person that the universe meant for me to be with, because that's not the way it works. There's a spectrum of people that would be a good match for you, and you have similarities that overlap with this person. You have differences as well that don't overlap. Now, there are certainly some people that are not for you, and they might be good people, but they're not for you. And then there are plenty of people that are not good people. They're bad guys. They're bad guys that are not for you. But the way that you find the one is first to develop your own qualities. Become the best version of yourself. Develop your talents. Decide what it is that you're interested in. What are the things that you're good at or you would like to be good at? Spend some time focusing on that and learn how to hold up a good conversation. Learn to think and to form opinions and to understand the world around you. Appreciate the beauty of the world around you. Become that type of person, and then you will find other people that view it the same way. Learn to play an instrument or learn to speak a language. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself, and then seek for the best version of that range of people
that would work for you.
Now, some people have a really wide range. Like, I think Riley does. I mean, granted, she's my daughter, so of course I think she's amazing, but I think she has a very broad spectrum. There are a lot of types of men that would make a good match for her.
I agree.
And then I know some of your friends that it would be a narrower spectrum, but it still isn't just one. Don't be frustrated if it takes some time, but don't put other things in front of that. Love is important. Building a family is important. The way that you find the one is to become the one, and then those best people, the people that would best complement you, they'll be drawn to you.
How much do you trust your daughter in her dating choices?
How much do I trust my daughter?
Meaning me.
I'm meaning you. I was going to say.
I mean, you could go through all of this.
I trust Riley. I trust her perspective. I trust what matters to her most. And I don't really worry, I should say it to you. I only worry that you might be in a circumstance that you can't control, that's dangerous for you. That's what I worry about. If you are in control, I'm not worried, because I believe you'll be wise. And I don't believe you're out of the woods yet through heartbreak and all that.
Yeah,
either.
no, definitely not.
But
I know.
even though you're young, you're approaching your decisions with wisdom and a good foundation. So I'm not worried. I trust it a lot. I think you can tell that.
Yeah,
you?
and you've said that before too. You said that you like feel confident in the head I have on my shoulders.
Yeah.
For all the time that I've spent thinking about it, preparing about it, talking to you, I feel very prepared to like make good decisions. And I've learned too from my past experiences that's gonna help me going forward.
I don't call you, I'm like, who are you dating? What's going on?
Yeah.
I raised you in a kind of a strict way. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel that I'm strict now that she's out of the house.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Like, I don't try to impose my will on you while you're away.
No.
And I did give you the 5 criteria for me to pay for your tuition.
Did we write those down?
I know them.
Okay, what are they? I can't remember.
I don't feel like I try and tell Riley what to do.
Yeah.
Like, she pretty much does her own thing.
At school, it's kind of just like, you're on your own. Just choose the right.
Make good choices, have fun, live your life. But I did say, I will help out, I'll pay tuition as long as you get good grades. If you're getting poor grades, then I'm not paying for that. Number 2, if you turn into a floozy at college, I'm not paying for your tuition. Like, you need to be virtuous. Number 3 was, if your school starts teaching things that I don't like, if they're teaching you a bunch of things that I think go against what our family believes and values, then I will not send tuition to a school that does that, even if that's your chosen field or whatever. If you get married, which I know you kind of would like to do in college, if you get married like Mom and I did in undergrad, then you should pay your own tuition. Like, you and your husband should figure all that out. Even if you have to take out loans, even if you have to do all that, because it'll be good for you. And then I said, if you knock the ball out of the park and you're like this amazing YouTube star and you make loads of money, then you have 5 other siblings that I have to take care of.
So
give me a
have
break.
fun.
Yeah.
Even without remembering exactly what all those are, I just expect that from myself anyway.
Right.
So hearing those again is not shocking. I'm like, yep. I mean, I would.
Well, and you were like, Dad, what do you think? Come on, And I was like, hey, I have to say the same thing. Who knows what your sisters and your brothers are going to get into, right?
Yeah.
So I have to be consistent. I can't show favoritism, right?
Yeah.
So I need to say the same thing to you, even though I fully trust you, as I would with your other siblings coming up, because they may get to the age of 18 and I don't trust them. That could happen. And so I don't want to be like, oh, well, you were so nice to Riley because you love her so much. Now you're being mean to me. No, I want the same thing for all of them.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fair. How can I get more confident around guys?
I think one of the best ways to become more confident around guys is to be yourself. So don't try and be something you aren't. It's fine to try and be your best self. If there's a part of you that's athletic and you think that that's what the guy likes, then, emphasize that. It's okay to emphasize the aspect of yourself that is the best and most likely to help the relationship. But if you find yourself being something that you aren't in order to try and get his interest, I would discourage that. You need to be true to yourself.
Would you recommend waiting for marriage?
I would definitely recommend waiting for marriage. If Riley decided not to wait until marriage to sleep with a guy, I would be disappointed. I would want to talk with her and say, Riley, I think you're getting things out of line. That level of intimacy should be saved for marriage. It's like 2 people becoming one. And when you do that, you're promising that you'll take care of each other. You're promising that you'll share your memories together, your holidays together, your in-laws. You're promising that you'll both get up in the night and change the baby's diaper. You're promising that when the bills come in and you don't know how you're going to make it all work, that you can prioritize things and get it together. You are promising all of that, or you should be promising all of it. That's what sex should represent in its best scenario. And it should be passionate and joyful and fun, but it should not be separated from a level of commitment. Otherwise, all you have is the passion and the fun, and you don't have any of the underlying foundation of what it means to be the best version of yourself. So yes, as a dad, I recommend all of my children, my sons and my daughters, all wait until their marriage before they sleep together with the person they're in love with. Let's say they already made the choice, they didn't wait. Then I would say it's not too late to say, you know what, I'm going to insist on a certain level of commitment for that level of intimacy. That's fine.
There's a person that also asked, what should I do if my significant other doesn't want to wait?
Well, I can understand why somebody might not want to wait, because We're driven biologically to want to be close to the person we're in love with, and we're biologically driven to reproduce. That's not wrong. It's a good and powerful thing. But if the person you're in love with is saying to you, well, I don't want to wait till marriage, there's a couple reasons why that is. Number one, maybe you met so early that you aren't in the situation where you can make the commitment. You've allowed your relationship to advance on a physical intimacy level so fast, and you're so young. You're not in the life situation to be able to say, yes, I'll marry you. I'll be with you forever. Let's have a family together. Let's live our lives together. Let's say you're 17, you are not prepared to make those commitments. Biologically, you definitely feel like you're ready to make that commitment from a physical standpoint, but that's not correct. It's not right. And I believe that if somebody is trying to push you into a level of intimacy that is not consistent with the commitment that is possible or that they're willing to make, then you might want to reconsider. You might want to reconsider. It is possible, I think, to meet somebody maybe too early in some ways, or allow your relationship to advance a little fast.
Do you think right person, wrong timing is a real thing?
Yes, I do. I think I've experienced it. Think about when you were 11, when you were 13, 15, 17, when you're 19 versus 21. Like, are you the same person? In some ways you are, but your ability to interact with another person, your ability to know what you want out of life, your ability to make decisions about your future and stick with it, you can meet somebody that's amazing and it's a little too early. And then by the time the timing's right, maybe the situation isn't. So I know that can happen, and that can be heartbreaking. I feel like that's something that happens often because we're designed to fall in love, and when we do and everything else doesn't line up, it can be just heartrending.
What are some relationship red flags?
Red flags for your relationship might include paying attention to how they treat other people, and if they treat you like an angel but they treat other people like dirt, it probably isn't too far-fetched to think that they're going to treat you like dirt at some point. For example, they use a bunch of profanity at somebody that they don't like, but they would never say it around you or never say it to you. Well, that may not be the case. If they're abusive in any way, that's a red flag. People aren't perfect, and they can do and say things that they regret, and I believe in repentance and us turning over a new leaf and starting again, but that's a red flag. If anyone's abusive, don't put up with that.
Guys never seem to stay interested in me. Am I doing anything wrong?
I can think of a number of reasons why guys might lose interest in a girl. So I'll just outline some of those. I don't know if this is your situation. So if they start off showing interest and then they lose that, sometimes it's because they do get to know you and there's something about you that is turning them off. They decide they don't like that. So kind of evaluating yourself without being too critical. Is there something I'm doing that's too abrasive? Is my sense of humor too sarcastic? Am I intimidating to the guys? Do I make them feel like they don't measure up? Sometimes men will avoid a relationship with a girl who makes them feel like they don't measure up. Consequently, that's why a lot of times guys will go for like an airheaded girl who laughs easy and just like has fun because they don't feel any pressure to impress, or they feel like they're easily impressing her because she's laughing and having a good time, and so it makes them feel like, well, I'm succeeding. So girls who are more reserved, that are more stoic, you can be having a wonderful time, but you're not as overt, you're not as extroverted about it, and I don't think you should necessarily change that. It takes maturity for a guy to recognize that the woman that he's with, or the girl that he's with, that she is having a good time. Another thing is, if you're too quick to give up everything that the guy wants. For example, some guys go for girls mainly for the physical aspect, and the girl is intimate with the guy, maybe she sleeps with him or something, and then they're no longer interested because there's no mystique, there's nothing to chase, they're only in it for themselves, and it's on to the next girl. Whatever level of intimacy that guy is seeking, if you just go ahead and give it with no commitment, that's often a reason why a guy will just move on.
Okay, I thought this one was funny. I want to know the answer to this. Do you like my guy friends? Like the guys in my videos? Do you feel like you like them? You've never met them.
I haven't met Riley's guy friends at college in person. In watching the videos, I think that there are some of them that I would get along with well, and I think there are some that I would probably just tolerate. And I mean, that's probably it. Riley once told me, she said, Dad, sometimes when I'm around a guy, I think to myself, how would he get along with Dad? And I'm really, really glad she feels that way.
Yeah, so. I think about that all the time.
Yeah. I didn't see any that I would dislike, like flat out dislike.
Yeah, okay. What makes a guy want to be completely committed to someone?
I believe that men naturally want to be protectors and providers. And so when there's an opportunity to do that, men will jump at the chance. I mean, just think of like, I think of like the Princess Bride, you know, when Buttercup says, you know,
Farm boy, fill these with water. Please.
As you wish.
Why do I literally feel like I want to cry every time that scene comes on? Okay, back to the video.
The fact that she gave him the opportunity to do something for her as a way of showing her that he loved her is very good. A lot of times it is something you do to show someone that you love them. There's also a corresponding level of commitment with intimacy. I think I've asked you before, Riley, if you have a friend that's a guy and you're walking on the beach, it's just a lakeside, and you reach down and grab his hand and just interlace your fingers while you're walking. When you're done with your walk and you head back to the condos or whatever you're staying in, or you've got family and friends around, what does that mean? Do you now feel like you need to have a conversation with him since that happened? Or is that just something you would do with any friend, anybody that you would walk on a lakeshore with, you'd grab their hand and hold hands with them?
I'm so bad at answering this question because I feel like it really depends on the situation. But it depends on if I had feelings for them. If I did have feelings for them, there would be a conversation that would be had after that. But if I didn't, if it was just like understood that that's just like whatever.
But is it ever just whatever?
Probably not.
I guess my point of view is when I was in high school, when I was in college, if there were girls that were my friends, interlacing my fingers with somebody and walking with them, I do that with your mom and like my kids and maybe my mom. But that's it. I'm not going to do that. My sister Trish, I'm really close with. I could maybe do that in a certain setting, but it's still like a little different. Like I'm walking. But mostly it's like I can put an arm around their shoulder and I don't feel like I need to have a defining the conversation. I can pat them on the shoulder. I could give somebody a hug and not be like, ooh, better define the relationship. If I kiss somebody.
Yeah, that's an easier one for me because I would be like, if I'm gonna kiss someone, at least personally, it's gonna mean something to me.
Every level of intimacy should have a corresponding level of commitment. And part of the emotional Russian roulette that people play today is when they get their physical intimacy out of line with their level of commitment. That creates a dissonance in their mind. People don't do well when they have a level of intimacy that is way higher or way lower than the level of commitment. Just for example, if somebody's sleeping with a guy and he has no commitment to you, you're gonna feel like a little off. Traditionally, in human beings, like that's not how it works. I guess it's more lack in our world today, but truly, if you're holding hands, you have to ask yourself, what's the level of commitment? And what's the level of exclusivity, right? If you're giving someone a kiss, sitting on their lap, like, what's the level of commitment? What's the level of exclusivity? If you're sleeping together, what's the level of commitment? You guys probably know. In our family, the commitment to marriage and to be exclusive to each other comes before sleeping together. So sometimes when we ask, how do I keep a guy committed? Well, you make sure those things don't get out of line because they can ruin a relationship. They can ruin a relationship that would have been very good.
How many dates do you think you should go on before it's appropriate to kiss someone?
How many dates should you go on before it's appropriate?
Like with the same person. So like, should you kiss on the first date, on the third date? Some people have like their, I don't kiss until the third date. So like, what would you say?
It makes sense to allow the date and the other person to kind of inform the circumstance. There were times I kissed on the first date.
Yeah, me too.
There were times that it took a long time before I gave someone a kiss. And I think that's appropriate. It shouldn't feel forced.
And it shouldn't be expected either, I feel like.
Right. That's what I mean by forced. Like, you shouldn't force yourself on somebody, nor should you feel like someone is like trying to pull this out of you.
Pressuring you into something,
Ideally, it doesn't feel awkward, but sometimes, sometimes it's just awkward. So I don't think it's wrong to give somebody a kiss on the first date. But I would warn that the faster you go with your physical intimacy, the quicker you need to be able to adapt to your commitment level. It's really easy to end up in a relationship and you don't have any commitment at all, and you're looking at your physical interaction and you're way out of line. So be careful with that.
If a guy starts ignoring me, should I keep running after him or stop getting my hopes up? How do you know when the other person is not interested anymore?
Someone who's in love with you or wants a relationship with you, they will make sacrifices to be with you. So my sister had this guy that kind of liked her, but he lived in another town, and he wouldn't make the drive to come visit her in our hometown. And I was like, that's ridiculous. So if the person starts to not be willing to make sacrifices, to spend time with you, to be around you, something's off. Maybe they just don't have the courage. Just like we talked about, you need courage to ask someone out. You need courage to break up with them too, when you should. and to be honest enough to say, this is over, I'm so sorry, but I need to be honest. So if you're in that phase and they're not being forthright, sometimes you throw them a bone too. It seems like you might be a little nervous to tell me the truth. You don't sacrifice to spend time with me, and I don't want to dominate your life, but we're not really
spending time
either on the phone or in person. We need to maybe recalibrate what our relationship looks like. It's sad when somebody chases after somebody else and that love is not returned. It's hard. It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
So try to avoid being in that situation, but you know what? Just because you might be in that situation, don't feel bad about yourself. Like, that's experience. You know, there are millions, I would say maybe even billions of people who have had that happen, and you're not alone. You are loved. God loves you. And he does, but you know, maybe that boy doesn't.
What was the #1 trait you looked for when you were dating people in college?
Number one?
Yeah. You can do like top 3 if you want.
Top 3 might be helpful.
Yeah, top 3.
It's hard to get past looks at the beginning for a man. I mean, if she doesn't turn your head, it's hard to get past that.
Which isn't wrong either.
No.
I feel like people think about that as like being wrong. But looks for guys, that is something that's very important. And just genetically, biologically, that's an important factor for them. So I don't think it's wrong.
When I asked her out for the first time over the phone, it was a blind. I hadn't seen, you know, we didn't have Instagram back then.
Yeah.
Facebook.
In 1994.
I think there was like MySpace.
Wait,
Anyway, I just called her on the phone and asked her. I had never met her, but I was sitting in church and I looked down the aisle of the pew and I see this like really short gray dress, these nice tan smooth legs crossed, and the dress was clearly a little shorter than it should have been for church. But I was like, well, that's a nice pair of legs, and I like leaned forward to see who it is, and it was your mom. So there's a lot of wonderful things about Wendy, but that was the first thing that grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
So when you say what's the first thing, to be honest, physical attractiveness it was there. For me, faith was really important. I needed to know that this person would want to raise our family in a faithful way. We do family prayer. We read the scriptures. We study the Bible. We go to church. You know, those things are really, really important to me, and I wanted them to be really important to her as well. So if she was like really hot, fantastic looking, and she was very faithful, that was a big deal to me. And then third was probably like work ethic / intelligence. I wanted my wife to be someone who was very industrious, very hardworking, and smart. Wouldn't you say your mom is hardworking and smart?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, she is. Those are the top 3 for me, and I think it's important to know what matters to you. I actually wrote it down.
Yeah, you did. So when my dad was on his mission, he wrote a list of like qualities, and we hear of girls making lists, but when a guy makes a list,
you saw it.
Yeah, I did see it. I'm just like, as a girl, I'm like, oh, I hope whoever I'm with ends up making a list that I fulfill. You know? Yeah. I love the fact that you actually thought about it. Like, that stands out, that you cared enough to like think about the kind of person that you wanted to be with.
Well, I had 5 roommates. We lived off campus, a big group of guys. And one time we took a piece of paper and we did like an X and Y axis. Top of the Y axis, we would put, you know, say athletic. And then the right side of the X axis, we might say, you know, musically inclined. So at the points around this graph, we would choose the values that we thought were ideal. And it got to be kind of funny because it can get a little ridiculous when you start designing your ideal, you know, date. We were actually measuring surface area on the paper. Like,
what do you mean?
Is she a 10 in this and a 7 in this and a 5 in this? And like connecting all the dots and like, it got a little ridiculous. But it was more in good fun. They were good guys and we were just talking about what mattered to us.
How do you know if you and your boyfriend are ready for marriage?
Marriage is one of the most heavy decisions you'll make in your life. And like having children, sometimes the math doesn't add up. It doesn't always add up to say, oh, this is perfect. It's the absolute perfect time to get married. But love is a passionate thing. It's not a logical thing. So you try and use logic, try and figure it out. Are you an adult? Do you have the means to provide for your own upkeep? Do you have the means to provide for shelter? Do you have the means to provide for food? Do you have the means to provide for advancement, like education or training or increasing your ability to earn and provide for yourself and your family? Have you taken care of all the other commitments that could possibly be drawing at you? So, like, say you're in the military and you have a commitment to the military that's going to take you away for a long time. Or maybe you have a child with somebody else that needs your attention and needs your resources. Maybe you've committed to an education program that's going to take you away? Have you taken care of the other commitments that is going to allow you to place the time and attention needed for the relationship that is your marriage? If you can't say yes to, I can provide for myself, I can put a roof over my head, I have resources and energy for personal advancement, then you probably shouldn't get married. But if you can say yes to those, yeah,
go for it.
Go for it.
2 thumbs up from the both of us. Do you think boundaries can change / can you get closer the longer you've been dating?
The longer that you've been dating, the more likely the boundaries will change. Familiarity brings about proximity. So your mom and I lived only about a block apart, so it was really easy for me to get over to her apartment, and the amount of time that we spent making out from like when I first started dating her till like right before we got engaged, there was an exponential increase. And so, like, you need to cool your jets a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the boundaries can change. Thankfully, in our circumstance, the commitment level was advancing with the physical intimacy. But if it isn't, woo, back off. Back off. No matter how handsome he is, no matter how enjoyable it is to make out and have that closeness, back off. Because you will crash and burn. If the commitment level and the physical intimacy aren't appropriately matched, you will crash and burn.
What dating advice would you give your younger self?
The dating advice that I would give my younger self would probably be, oh man, that's hard. That's a hard one. I think I would have warned myself about the heartbreak. I would have certainly warned, because I really didn't think I was going to get a heartbreak.
Yeah, of course not.
So
looking like this, you wouldn't think so.
I would have warned myself more in that instance. I might have encouraged myself to think deeply about aspects that maybe are on that second tier. You know, we talked about the top 3 things, you know, but think deeply about the things that are on the second tier as well. And that might have clarified some things for me during my dating years that I had to do kind of trial and error. And I would have patted myself on the back in many ways, because I would have said, good job, you ran away from that one, you dodged that bullet, good job.
I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks so much, Dad, for filming with me. I loved hearing all the advice that you had for everybody, and if you guys want a part 2, let me know down below. Let me know what questions like were most helpful for you.
I enjoyed doing it with you, Ryan.
I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video.
See you
Bye,
guys.